Meanwhile, she regained consciousness but couldn't properly process reality yet. On the surface, it looked like everything was normal. She couldn't realize that there was no conformity in her awareness and that something was really off. Think it's horror time? It was night. Outside the train, the car was pure darkness, and the lights inside only seemed to emphasize it. Yeah, she's in a pocket dimension or something crazy. Hisato Amamiya instantly assumed that she was riding on a late-night train, returning from work, that tired her so much she'd fallen asleep on the ride. She clung to that story for a few seconds, but as her thoughts became more clear, she became more pale. Had she slept too long? Had she been sleeping here for a whole few hours? What happened to Yasunada Oribe? She abandoned the boy who needed her help. What a horrible thing to do. Hisato quickly dug into her bag. The two phones she had both said it was 4 minutes past midnight, and that there are no missed calls or texts. Oh, something funky's happening. Not only that, but both of them said that they were out of service range. Out of range? On a train line? It ain't no subway. She then realized another thing. This wasn't a loop line. If she overslept, she would have been awakened and kicked out. Even if that didn't happen, she would have been caught up in the rush. No way she could have kept sleeping then. In that case, what was happening here? She naturally assumed the reverse, i.e., that her meeting with Yasunada was just a dream. She got drunk, got to the last train, that was when reality ended. She began having a dream where she met Yasunada Oribe and let him stay over. What a weird dream that would be. That wouldn't explain everything. She didn't have her personal phone with her. Unless she dropped it somewhere, she lended it to Yasunada. Then there was the shopping list she made. It was hard to argue that she made it while sleeping. She definitely got on a daytime train and somehow arrived here. A train with no one else but her. Something wasn't right. Hisato finally realized that she was in an unnatural situation. She was asking for this, kinda. Basically, something paranormal. Unlike a certain swindling author, when faced with the paranormal, normal people felt only fear. True? No, that wasn't her thinking that. That was like the narrator. So she doesn't know he's an author. She licked her lips. Hisato had been dreaming of seeing something paranormal her whole life. That's what I was saying. Even though she knew by now that there were always just people behind the curtain, she'd still chase the darkness. And this time she finally got it and what she wanted. She'd been waiting for this for long, and she was ready. She prepared to put up a front. It was time for her to show off her skills as an ex-occult writer. She stood up. Her car was the fourth, the same as when she'd gotten on. It looked like a normal train, if you ignored that there were no other passengers. Hisato moved through the car and opened the door. There was a soft curtain riddling at the connection, and it seemed to visualize the loud but organized sounds and vibrations. The train was still running. To the third car. All was the same. To the second car. Oh, that is always the same? I don't think that's the same, man. That looks a little creepy. All was the same. The train was still running. To the first car. All was the same. All was the same. The train was still running. She's looping. All was the same. All was the same. All was the same. The first car was the front. Hisato covered her mouth. Even though she hadn't eaten much since morning, she was hungry. In fact, she felt an intense urge to vomit. As she went onward, she became aware that there was some sort of anomaly that affected the nervous system. Her thoughts became dull, and her paralyzed sense of danger made her unable to realize it. Her physical condition was just getting worse and worse. Urge to vomit, a headache. She finally realized that something was even more wrong than she thought. The lack of oxygen? Odorless gas? The journalist who looked into cases of carbon-based suicide had told her that carbon monoxide poisoning made people fall asleep and just die. There had to be someone at the front. The train wouldn't be moving otherwise. Hoping for help, Hisato stared over ahead. She felt like she could fall at the slightest curve. How long would this train keep going forward? Upon arriving at the front, she looked through the window into the conductor's seat. There was no one there, or rather, she couldn't perceive it. The part of the scenery through the window where the driver should be seemed to be cut out. She couldn't see it, as if she was actually blind to just that part. Though it didn't look like there was something there, it was probably worse. That place itself just didn't exist. Basically, it was a space that rejected the laws of the physical world, something fatal for human perception. She quickly looked away, her vision returned, but the car wasn't the same as before. It looked like it'd been left underwater for half a century. There was rust, tears, and rot everywhere. Okay, yeah, at least you can see it now. The doors were dirty, the seats were torn, the walls were eroded, and the windows were covered in dirt. However, none of that could compare to the advertisements hanging here and there. After all, they weren't in Japanese. It wasn't the alphabet or Hangul either, nor was it Hebrew or Arabic either. The text seemed like warped, heretical, evil hieroglyphs that couldn't have been created by a human hand. It made her realize that she'd been seeing them for a while, but only found them suspicious now. Oh, this is what you wanted. That's why, even though I like the paranormal stuff, I would never wish to actually encounter one. Sato's courage was quickly overwhelmed by fear and panic. Those who only knew wild beasts from zoos didn't know the fear of being inside those cages. The fear filling her throat and crawling up her skin was just too great to resist. However, she could overcome it just enough to create a goal for herself: escape. She had to get out. With only that thought in mind, she closed in on the nearby door. Above her, there was a rusty metallic cover hiding an emergency lever. The instructions on it were written in the same cryptic hieroglyphs, so she looked away. For a moment, she almost felt like they'd extended like tentacles and wrapped around her fingers. She forcefully opened the cover, moaning because of the tearing pain in her hand, and pulled the rusty lever. There was an alarm. She knew it was because of what she did, but she felt like it was a scream of the train-shaped yokai. With a high-pitched, wet, annoying, lowly, belittling, insulting sound, the train began to slow down. The train broadcast? Okay, that is not a real language. It was a male voice. It sounded somewhat monotone and sleepy, just like the train. She couldn't understand a word of what it said. Unable to bear it, she finally vomited, but even then she didn't let go of the emergency lever. Her fists turned pale from how hard she held it. Hurry. Hurry up and stop. Hoping for just that, she directed her cloudy eyes into the darkness outside, where she saw a white, square, luminous object. It was a station name in the Japanese language. It was there for just a moment, but she read it. The next moment, the train shook, Hisako almost fell, and the train stopped. The door opened up. Upon realizing that, she noticed that the other train cars were as clean as she remembered, but she couldn't trust her senses anymore. Breathing raggedly, she made her way outside. We just stopped at, like, the entrance to hell. The voice from before followed her. Kisaragi Station. That's a real place. That was close. She couldn't see the outside well, but she realized that only a small part of the first car next to the platform. If she walked out from any other car, she would have fallen onto the tracks. Feeling hard concrete on her knees, she tried to stabilize her breathing, which was when her surroundings became dark. The bright lights from the train had vanished. She turned around and saw the train lying there like the corpse of a large beast with its jaws hanging open. It still made some mechanical sounds, but she felt like it would fall completely silent soon, like a cadaver. She didn't know why the train had to shut down right after an emergency stop. She didn't even know if there was a reason. Once her breathing stabilized, she stood up. There were no light sources anywhere. She concluded this was a platform because of the signs she'd seen from inside. And knowing that, this was just a concrete ramp. Even empty stations had night lights. What was this place?
ここどこよ
She already had info, however. The station's name was Kisaragi, and it was in Hiragana. It fit the Japanese announcement she heard. Kisaragi was in a station she knew. Okay, not a real station? It still didn't look like a proper train platform, but it wasn't. If it wasn't that, then what?
超常現象に細かいところ突っ込んでもどうにもならないか
But she'd quickly remembered that there was no guarantee that this was supernatural. Looking back at all the phenomena so far, it was likely that this was just an illusion. Surely. This was some station late at night, and she was just incapable of acknowledging anyone else here. However, she had to act based on what her eyes told her. All the horror characters who thought they went insane were fated to die. She needed light, so she took out her phone. When she did so, something made her widen her eyes. The battery was almost empty. How? It could last 2 days without charging, and it was relatively new.
単純に無意識の
Supernatural.
間に時間がすっ飛んでしまったとかも考えたけど違う
She concluded upon looking at the other phone, it ran out of battery faster, but it somehow had more than the other. And both of them were out of service range. She thought she escaped trouble when she left the train, but the idea was shallow. Maybe it would have been better to just stay in the fourth car?
いやまだわからないすでに難は逃れたけど山奥の配線に放り出されたってパターンかも
It was best to believe that something was wrong, but it was best to avoid extreme assumptions. She figured she had to look around a bit more. She took the phone with more battery left and lifted it up. The weak light illuminated the platform and a rusty fence. There was nothing but a dense hedge around it, and there was no way to tell what was further. She directed the light up. There was a roof, a really small one, like the ones used in bus stops. It was also aged, but not as much as the train. There'd been a schedule on the support here, but it was torn off, apparently. She looked at the text and numbers that were still there. It was no doubt Japanese. Was this actually an abandoned station? She lit up the rails. It was a one-sided platform, and beyond the rails there was nothing but a grassy cliff. Further in, there was a ticket booth and a small station-like building. She thought that she saw a dim light beyond it. As her eyes gotten used to the dark, she could finally differentiate between the dimly lit, cloudy sky, the lights in her hands, and the lights inside. There was something there. The station sign, perhaps? Hisako walked by the ticket gate and directed her light to the other side. Darkness, or rather, the outside was so vast that the backlight couldn't reach it. That meant she could leave. There were no workers at the ticket booth. It'd be too scary if there were. She shook her head, went forward, and looked inside the station building through the broken window. There was no one inside. There was a mess, but it didn't look like there was anything significant there. It looked like it had been abandoned after a thorough move. Nothing more, nothing less. All that was left now was finding out what that light was. She'd expected to just find a station sign, but what she actually found beyond the building surprised her. It was a vending machine. I mean, even in hell, there's gonna be vending machines in Japan. Coffee, fruit juice, sports drink, green tea. For some reason, most were warm, and there were even brands she knew well. Sato sighed in relief. Finally, she came across a piece of the civilization she knew. At the same time, she became hungry and thirsty, and the puking had given her a sore throat and stomach. Additionally, it was also summer. The air around her was warm, and the tension made her sweat a lot. She wanted to drink some water. She took out 100 yen from the wallet in her bag and put it in the machine. She pressed on the button for the mineral water, and it fell to the tray. Sato stuck her hand in and felt the cold of the bottle. It was the standard European hard water. She opened it and brought it to her mouth. It's gonna be something gross. At that moment, she wondered what had happened to her caution from before. She didn't know what this place was. It could have been exactly like that train. There was no better time to question her senses than now. So why did she choose to drink something from here? When you're thirsty, you're thirsty. She knew better than the usual person that eating the food from a different world was an expression of willingness to become a bride of that world and reject the old one. Shami even knew that too, even though it didn't really matter. Before her throat could enjoy the water, she threw away the bottle and vomited again. With that, she was assaulted by a powerful dizziness and headache. She spat and tried to keep herself together. Then she looked at the vending machine. Evil vending machine. It was no longer just that. It was a gathering of creeping vines on a stone wall. The leaves were all bigger than her arm, and she could see clearly now, for it shone. It was a white closer. It was a white closer to blue. A white closer to blue. It was a beautiful blue hot flame casting a light you would only see in places like nuclear reactors. It brought about destructive energy that didn't allow life. It propagated and diffused and spread maliciously. The plant bore fruit. Hisako unhesitantly looked at the gel-like fruit covered in a malicious blue and filthy red. One of them was right next to her feet, and its fruit juice was spread out on the granite-like floor she was standing on. She just ingested the juice of a fruit from a plant that was not of her world. Definitely not smart. She spit it out though, or did she? The surroundings no longer tried to hide their evil nature. The building was exactly the same as before, however, the base material had become granite. It was covered in the same cryptic hieroglyphs as she'd seen in the train, and it made her scream a little. The train was now all rusty and rotten, just like the interior of the first car was. It was like a metal ship that had washed ashore. It seemed to symbolize the defeat of the human mind or the victory of the evil lurking here. Struggling to keep her footing, she looked for proof that she wasn't going insane. However, that hope was shattered when she saw her phone screen. It showed only static, a field of unintelligible black and white. Might be bones. Everything beside her was going insane. No, even her own things were like this. How could she make sense of this? She couldn't even look at a mirror now. Though panicking again, she couldn't throw away her phones. They were her only weapon after all. She worked the phone as best as she could. She even tried to do something on the other, almost dead phone. She wanted it to connect to somebody, anybody. Contact button, up and down buttons, call button, no luck. She couldn't connect no matter how hard she tried, but that didn't stop her. The small bit of rationality she had left told her it was pointless, but she repeated it regardless, for she had nothing else. Save her. He was calling Hisako every 20 minutes or so, but he had no luck with either of her phones. It was close to evening now, so it was best for him to return by himself. Certain she wouldn't answer, he called the Me Deadlines phone. Having no luck there, he then tried the Me Connections, knowing it was pointless. Normally there's a ringtone followed by an announcement that the target phone was in service range, but there was nothing. No call sound, no voice, nothing. Curious, Yasunaga said that. There was no response.
間宮さんですか？僕です。織部安永なんですが、終わったので今から帰ってもいいでしょうか?
He said what he wanted. Suddenly,
おやおや
God!
おやおやおや
Save Mamiya, man!
お守りを渡して正解でしたの。
So, Yasunaga was guided to Mamiya to save her. Base God, thank you. Thank you, Mujina. It was a voice he shouldn't have heard here.
はるちゃん。え？
我がおるときにその呼び名はつまらんの。兄ちゃん。
ああ、ごめん。狼様。じゃなくて、神様。え、どうしてあなたに繋がったんです？
With the wolf killing incident, he found out that Haru Makishima's game wasn't just an act. Nah, she really has a god in her. He hadn't seen her act like that himself since that time, but Shikamochi might have. However, Yasunaga knew this entity was someone to be revered and loved. Anyway, she was too poor to have a phone, so there was absolutely no way he could have called her.
別に電 電話などしておらぬ。
What a strange response.
我が一部を封じた5分によりて、貴様を一時的に鏡としたに過ぎませぬ。その電話から聞こえるように思うわ。貴様がそこから声がするのは自然じゃと思っておられるからじゃ。
That explanation was a bit convoluted, but he understood
科
it.
学的には説明のつかないことが起きてるんですね。何か象徴や意味が大事になるような。
さすが貴様は頭がおよろしいの。あの町のお方のようじゃ。おしとにかくじゃ。すぐに電話を切りなされ。
え、それじゃあ話せなくなるでしょ。
全言撤回。貴様は
She just explained that. She's not following through that.
何ですかそれは。
本当に電話をしておるわけではないん
But
じゃ。
it feels more natural. It's trying to make him look like a schizo if he's just talking to himself.
いいから切らぬか。
Or you'll die. What that? He understood that she was telling him he was in a bad situation and quickly hung up.
押しました。
よきかな。
どういう意味なんです？死ぬって。
もう安心してよろしいぞ。
説明してほしいです。
小難しい説明は苦手じゃ。
そこをなんとか。
貴様、先ほどどこかに電話をかけたじゃろう。
かけました。
He was confused by the "so far you cannot reach them" part, but he nodded. Hisato's house was... Oh, so maybe... Okay, maybe God wasn't trying to save Hisato, but the charm, like, reacted to, like, some supernatural entity, like, getting near Yasunada. Okay. I mean, still based protecting Yasunada from evil entities, but still. Honestly, call Meito, bro. Meito would just come over and eat the whole plant in the train, and then just go ba and leave. It's too bad we don't have her on speed dial. Hisato's house wasn't far away, and phones didn't usually mind distance that much. It wasn't an international call or anything.
冬季点一つと地下起点二つがたまたま時を同じくして呼び合った。本来交わりがたき二つの世でも点が三つあれば結界をなす。ひどく無作法で不全なる解ですがの。故にそれは黄泉の無地なを呼び込む。
God's words were too hard for him to even understand, but he did remember that God had once been called Mujina, a badger.
それはあなたとは違うんですね。
似て非なるもの。不浄なる約定により、人の闇から真の闇へ生まれ落ちし者ども。それが結界の最も鋭き核から現れ、貴様を襲うやもしれなんだ。
It is a good thing, for sure. For sure. He really didn't feel like he'd escaped some sort of danger. However, God's roundabout words were enough for him to learn a certain truth. A distant point and 2 points that were near. If standing on the triangle made by this was dangerous, it meant that Yasunada was standing on it too. Were the 2 points the phones Hisato had?
間宮さんは今そんな遠くにいるんですか。
タコにも、いな、いかにも。
神様、山の神様でしょ。
It's not time for jokes.
意味じゃったの。
食いしん坊を発揮してる場合じゃないだろ、はるちゃん。間宮さんはどこにいるんです？物理法則が効かないくらい遠くって。
じゃからその名で呼ぶな。気が散る。しかしまあ、よくよくお分かりじゃの。神の奥ゆかしさも台無しじゃ。その女は。
Purgatory? Yo, what'd she do to deserve that, man? That word wasn't in his vernacular. He instantly turned around. Went to, like, read it? Never heard of purgatory? I mean, maybe that's not that uncommon. With an empty expression, Yasunada walked up to a PC in the library and awakened it from its sleep. You turn on the browser, access a search site, and type purgatory. Couldn't you just like ask God what purgatory is instead of using your time like this? Since the ruin excavation book he wanted to read was being lent to an American school, he spent his time reading a technical guide and using a PC. As a result, he'd already come to understand computer interfaces, networks, the relevant base concepts, and how to use them. He looked at the search results and opened up the purgatory entry on a dictionary.
天国と地獄の間。キリスト教ですか?
He talked into the inactive phone again.
我はその神のことは言うておらんが。まあ。
Could have just asked. I know you could have asked her instead of doing all that.
そういう人は神の居所にたどり着くのに、しばしば山を、闇を、そして夢を用いる。それはあまたの思い出のかけらが、茅のごとく、葦のごとく茂るあれの。そこを越えて、人は神を望みまする。
間宮さんは死にかけてるっていうことです。
そうとも違うとも言えましょうな。
事故とか。
いな。女は生きながらにして煉獄に連れられたのであろう。
どうしてそんな。
神隠しなど昔は珍しゅうも
True.
のうございましたぞ。
今は昔じゃありません。
And in the city is kind of crazy. Thought that was more of a rural thing.
人を欺き、かどわかす神もおりますれば、そういった神ほど恐ろしい。特にそのお方様は
誰が隠したか知っているんですね。
Plant God.
その女を救いたいと仰せか、兄ちゃん。
Oh, might as well.
はい。一宿の恩がありますから。
She let us crash. Might as well risk our life and save her from purgatory. Fair trade.
我を称えるか。
お土産を山ほど持って帰ります。
Nice.
良きかな。機械を使うのでありましょう。さらば、この国の道を行くこと。
Send her a voicemail.
小姉を
聞かれているからとか。
空恐ろしいお方じゃな、貴様。
物分かりはいい方です。
Sometimes. He could always bring himself ahead of the rest with his inhuman thought processes. I said sometimes, but I guess the whole plan thing was... Well, actually, was the whole plan thing... I guess I was wrong, because I thought the whole plan thing was to bring him to Mamiya till she's in danger, but that wasn't it, so... He actually just got lost. This might have been due to the Higuchi blood in his vein. Wait, that's true, he has upgraded observation powers. I forgot. They were known to be good at government planning and tactics. Though he was not as extreme as Chikamochi, the three-legged crow, and servant of God, Yasunada was no doubt a genius.
じゃあやっぱり。
さよう。神なき国を経由し、文をしたためよ。
Save her. Suddenly the phone next to her ear rang, and Hisato's face wet with tears, and Snot stared at the screen in shock. She could read the text. She looked around and found that the anomalies were nowhere in sight. Hisato wouldn't let that fool her, though. This place was definitely unnatural. Or perhaps she herself was going insane. It was impossible to assert that the paranormal was just a delusion. More importantly, the phone. It was an email. It was from an unregistered free mail address. Upon seeing the name before the @ mark, Yasunada, she gasped loudly. With shaking fingers, she opened the email. I pray you aren't filtering this domain. I assume you aren't, since the phone you gave me didn't have the setting. Due to certain circumstances, I found out that you might be in danger, so I am emailing you to confirm. Hey, you in purgatory? Please respond soon. You're in a place you shouldn't be. Everything you see is dangerous. Don't do much, and please send me more details. I will consider how to deal with it. Use the address given here. It should work. What a calm response. There's a copy paste of a very long URL there. She tried to open it but couldn't access it because the phone wasn't in service range. As she thought about that, she got another one. I forgot to mention, I am sending this mail from a foreign server. It seems that only networks in Japan are blocked. That's why you cannot access the local phone services and networks. The site I linked to is foreign. Please open it using the internet. If you don't know how to do that, please wait until I give you instructions. Please hold. Hisato was dumbfounded. Had he lied that he didn't know how to use a phone? He's a fast learner. It actually felt that he knew computers and networks even better than her. Anyway, she knew that Japanese phone networks were separate services provided by the carriers, so that was the reason why she couldn't access it. Hisato chose the URL again and picked the option to open it in the browser. Success! It was a very crude, simple website. There were some Cyrillic? I don't know what that means. Letters at the top, probably an explanation, along with the text form and button which was probably used to send the text. A web chat page? That meant she had to enter her nickname. She tried to input her own name and realized that she couldn't remember it. Uh-oh. Yasunaka had already logged in as Yasu and repeatedly pressed the refresh button. Upon seeing the new person join, he raised his voice. But the person who logged in was called Okitya. Was it a glitch? Did the phone display it wrong? But at that moment... Help! A short yet heavy message was displayed. What kind of place are you in? Kisaragi Station. I looked it up, but it doesn't seem to exist. It probably just looks like a station. Don't let it fool you. I know. I can feel that I'm in a weird place. I sometimes can't even tell what's real or not. It's bad. I can't even remember my name. You talked to God about this while preparing, and that got him a warning from the librarian. They would take the phone away if he used it again. He had to be careful about using it, but he more or less already found out what he had to do. It was bad because of the warnings that God had given him. Don't drink or eat anything in the other world. Well, a little late for that. Don't forget your own name. Well, a little late for that. Don't turn around if chased. Not too late for that. You are Hisato Mamiya-san. Hisato Mamiya, say it and remember it. Hisato Mamiya. Yeah, that's me. Thanks. Don't eat anything. I almost ate a weird fruit. What? Are you okay? I spat it out. Was that good enough? I don't know, man. What if just a bit of it was fatal? But then again, if she didn't actually accept it, maybe it was just fine. It was probably a question of mentality. Tell me, what Kisaragi Station is like? It took a while for her to respond. There's a single set of rails, no workers, it's all dark and cloudy, there's a vending machine, the train stopped nearby. I got here by going to Tokyo. After I bought some water at the vending machine and almost drank it, before spitting it out, everything changed and it became like this warped, weird temple. Then I started feeling sick, it happened on the train too, it became a mess. And I saw a weird text. Apparently these places change depending on the observer. It's the concepts that matter. Why do you know so much about this? I'll tell you once you're back. We need to focus on the situation. You're in purgatory. All places where God exists can be escaped. Huh? Where's Virgil? Where's Beatrice? What's going to God means dying, doesn't it? And going to God means dying, doesn't it? She's talking about the real like the Christian purgatory, not like that's just this general term of purgatory. He didn't understand, or it's Dante, Divine Comedy. Right. I never read that. Know it obviously. Didn't understand what she was talking about, so he looked it up. It was from a classical work, Divine Comedy. He's impressed by how knowledgeable she was. I'll lead you through it. It's possible to save you if I can get there. Trust me. I don't really get it, but okay. You also might just be imagining that you don't feel so good. Try lighting a fire to feel better. I don't have a lighter and I can handle this for now. Okay, now I had this idea. If purgatory is between heaven and hell, shouldn't they be the previous or the latter stations? I see. Good idea, but I don't know from where I got on this hell-heaven tour. I don't know the details, but did it seem like things would get worse if you kept riding? It did. It might have been a train to hell. Wait, she actually clutched up by stopping. Then maybe you should try heading back to the previous station. The train doesn't work, right? Right, but I don't want to ride it again anyway. Can you follow the rails on foot? Can I really trust you? I'm not 100% certain. Tell me if there's any new info. Alright, I just saw the moon. Just so you know, it sits in the evening here. You're joking. Is the flow of time different there? That's not what I mean. This is bad. What is? Please respond. She really did see the moon. There was a space in the clouds covering the sky, and a reddish moon peeked through it. It was in its first quarter, a half moon. Though it wasn't bright, it had a powerful presence, and it seemed to shine all over the platform. She just realized the strange, unknown structure she couldn't see in the darkness had been right on top of the station. For a moment, it seemed to be a light hanging strangely high, or what she saw from the window. But that was no light source. It was a giant lens that gathered the moonlight. There were also metal mirrors around, and they all occasionally released a light akin to the moon's. They were probably there to prevent the lens gather moonlight through photos reflection. To help the lens gather moonlight through photos reflection. It moved despite there being no wind. The more immediate problem was the fact that the unnatural device focused the moonlight into a ray of light that created a red dot on Hisato's chest. The redness filled her with fear, but then she jumped back, feeling that was being targeted on purpose. It was like a moment from a movie where a vile sniper trained their laser sights on the protagonist. The light didn't follow Hisato, instead it went away from her and the platform to target the train. Suddenly, like a bit of ice melting under a laser, the train lost its false appearance. The new-looking train instantly became a crumbling, rusty wreck, and then it finally exposed its true form. She instinctively knew that the new appearance wasn't harmless to the sane world of men she knew. That moonlight was no light of judgment, and the moon was not the moon she knew. It was the evil moon of a different realm. Its power was to return things to their true forms. That was the light and the device. For a moment, below the pillars supporting the lens, she thought she saw a silhouette, which was either a small human or a gigantic amphibian. She was no longer in a situation where her eyes could be trusted. Oh god. Poor Mamiya, man. What did she do to deserve this? What is that, man? Oh, it's crazy. The train had begun to melt into a soft, transparent, yet still metallic material. It had chemifluorescence, the anomalous quality of the fruits. If Hisato had any knowledge in developmental biology, she would have compared it to a cellular change that happened during differentiation, which took place during the start of life or regeneration. Her impressions of this event was more straightforward. It looked like a pupa going through metamorphosis. What was once a train was now standing. It was an extremely large beast. From head to toe, it had become a transparent body that could support its own immense flesh and bone. The white, slimy skin quickly became a red-purple colored jelloid that spread throughout. Breaking through the bark-like material and spewing lots of mucus, the objects grew branches, laid with multiple joints. They were small compared to its body, but they had the numbers. It grew more and more of these legs. And once it was done with that, the creature looked like a screw pine she'd seen in Okinawa. It felt like a malicious, heretical caricature of the strange tree that grew countless roots. That probably wasn't the best comparison. The thing was by no means a peaceful plant. This was a vile, gluttonous animal that lived only to eat and reproduce. Partially on reflex, she recorded a summary of her thoughts on her phone. Even though the extreme fear and shock had numbed her mind, she was well trained enough to pull that off. She looked down and saw the phone vibrate just before it stopped working. It ran out of battery. Sato could no longer get help. She had to handle this herself. Her goal was to return, and for that she had to go to God, which required her to move and run away from the grayish pillar of flesh with comb-like teeth. It was even puking something. After looking at it, she realized something. With the train gone, she could see something that she'd lost sight of before. It was a station sign. It glowed white like a lamp, and she could see the hiragana for Kisaragi from there just fine. She jumped off the platform, landed with all her limbs, and began running, ignoring the pain of the impact. She could hear thuds behind her as something soft was puked out on the floor, but she couldn't observe it. Following the rail, running on the rock, she hurried to the station sign. It looked like this. Kisaragi Katatsu Darkness. I'm assuming we do not want to go to darkness, so let's go to Katasu. Looking at how the train went, she'd come from Katasu and traveled towards darkness. However, this left her confused. Katasu Kisaragi Darkness? What was that? Did Katasu refer to Neno Katasukuni? The world in Japanese myth had the heavens Takamagaharu, the netherworld Yomi no Kuni, and this world Ashiharanakatasukuni. Sure, I said that perfectly. Nanotatsukuni, also known as Nenokuni, isn't that a Studio Ghibli JRPG? Had been placed where Izanagi and Susanoo lived. Due to various circumstances, such as the root part of it, it ended up being considered the same place as Yomi no Kuni. The afterlife, basically, hell. Was Katasu hell? But if that was the case, darkness would be heaven, but she barely knew any myths where darkness was good. It's confusing. I don't know, but I feel like, 50-50. She began running and couldn't stop now. Where did she have to head? She was attacked by the unpleasant feeling again. Of course she would be. The sign had now displayed those distressing hieroglyphs. She had no idea what it meant now, and behind her... Well, if it's behind her, you can only really run one way. Oh dear. The monster had begun to seem beautiful and lovable to her. That was a mother. A mother beyond all bonds and blood, an incarnation of motherhood that manifested here in this world. Come on. Budget Tsuchidumo, basically. Wah! All that she birthed would be consumed by her, then birthed again. It was an honor and a joy. That kind of looks like a... What's it called? Hempia from Muv-Luv? Muv-Luv enjoys would know. Cursed Hepia? The anomaly, still covered in transparent gelatin, had somehow retained a human form. It was summoning Hisako, welcoming her. She would embrace the child with those wet hands and summon her into reincarnation and the greatest pleasures. Actually, Fate Tsuchidumo, man. She almost felt like crying. She wanted to take off her clothing and be purified by the great mother, embraced by all. Meito would be awesome. She would definitely love eating that if she loved eating the Tsuchidumo. Even so, she could bear it. She successfully endured it. After all, she knew. Her discovery made her laugh in a strained, maddened manner. The puzzle she had in her head had finally been solved. Yasunari-kun's hint was necessary, but its direction was off. Purgatory, Rengoku, Leng... She wasn't Dante, but Randolph Carter. Kisaragi meant moonlight. That meant that it was a place to gather and use power from the distant moon of illusion. I have no idea what reference this is. I don't know who that is. The moon's power had been prepared to open up a route into the great darkness. It was the pinnacle of madness involved in connecting to a device from a universe that rejected the laws of physics. Oops. Charting nowhere. It looked like this simply because she was Japanese and a modern person. The place was basically a kind of hell wrapped in Hisako's imagination. But if you recognize that, if you acknowledge that the Necronomicon, Carter, Dreamland, Lend, Plateau, Shub, Nidorath, Cthulhu. Sorry, is this a Lovecraft thing then? Has to be. If you realize that many mystery stories are left by H.P. Lovecraft could manifest as a real threat, then didn't that mean this world was on the verge of ending? As if that mattered to her. Hisato was an adult. She knew how to pick out things that were good for her and turn a blind eye to the contradictions and survive in a way that was in no way fair. The Hisato who knew the truth could ignore the fear it inspired to deal with the immediate threat. That barely made sense, but it made her pull herself together. She had no reason to hesitate any longer. Her destination wasn't Neno Katsukuni, it was something hidden there, in there. Kadath Station. I've read a couple of Lovecraft stories, like 3 of them, but nothing concerning this. As far as she knew, this was a challenge. It was a place where few could find themselves. She didn't know if normal people could live there. However, if there's something that had led her here, she had a good guess about its identity that made such a human-like trap. Then getting there should be easy. After all, the rules had already been written. But that was when she was assaulted by the worst spell of dizziness and nausea yet. It nearly brought her to her knees. If she stayed around like this, everyone would catch her. She now understood why Yasunada had suggested she light a fire, but she wasn't in a situation where she could do it. Would the other phone burn if she shorted its battery? What a pointless thought. The phone had a row to fill. In that case, she would use her minimal mythical knowledge to create a small fire. She opened her notepad, clenched a ball pin linked to it, cast a spell, and struck it against the granite floor. Oh no, it's actually scientific. At the edge of the stone with riddling marks of evil all over it. The metallic ball instantly broke, but she didn't mind as long as it lasted long enough for her to finish. It would hold meaning even if made like this, surely. Line, corner, line, line, corner, line. Watching the transparent creature approaching her, she felt her intellect become overwhelmed by fear and panic, but she still pressed on. This was how it was supposed to look like. Okay, no, this actually is an incantation. I thought she was like somehow creating sparks or something. A warped pentagram, or like a tree-like symbol of divinity. In the middle of it, there was a figure akin to that eye or a flame. It wasn't a powerful weapon. If there was something better, this world would have surely been saved from the fear of Cthulhu by now. It would surely hold no meaning against the Great Mother approaching her. But there were still its children, the natural heir here and the entity controlling the moon lens. It could maybe work on them. She finished carving the Elder Sign. The next moment, the world screamed. Flame on! It didn't actually deal much damage to this realm itself. However, even a simple needle could bring severe pain if used well. It was especially damaging to those who didn't expect such a retaliation. With a rending sound, things changed. First, it was the air. Perhaps not permanently, but it felt purified. Second, those chasing her writhed and faltered. The Great Mother behind them shook as if in rage and continued birthing more children. Oops. Now was the time. Now is the time to run! She sprinted. Get out of there. I'm going to Katasu Station. The second phone's about to run out of battery too, and I won't be able to contact you again. I trust you. Hisako had logged in after OTEQ had logged out because the first phone's battery had run out. I keep pressing it, dude. After that message, no amount of refreshing the web chat page added anything new. A while later, Hisako was logged out, no longer having any business with the empty chat page. Yasunada closed the browser. After that, he placed the phone next to his ear.
そっちに向かうようです。
承知した。あとはお任せを。
It's time to bop a Lovecraftian creature. With just that, he closed the phone. As if to escape the librarian advancing in his direction with furrowed eyebrows, Yasunada logged off the PC and left. There was nothing more he could do besides believe in them.
頼むよ、神様。
Go, go, go! Hisato ran. She ran along the train tracks illuminated by a sinister moonlight. Her legs often got caught on the railroad ties and she fell a lot. Her high heels were broken, but being barefooted would have made things even harder. Her feet hurt so much that she could barely feel her toes. She couldn't keep the tears from her eyes. Eventually all she could do was stagger forward, but even so she couldn't stop. She had an urge to look back. She actually thought she had to. For all she knew, she might have lost them completely. Wait, never look back when being chased! That was one of Yasunada's rules. However, she knew better than the average person that turning around in such situations was a big mistake. Thus she continued walking. She wished to return to the boy who was worried sick about her. She would give him her thanks as well as make him some eccentric yet delicious food. With just that in mind, she continued walking. This might have continued for an hour or two, maybe even longer. She continued walking, looking only at her legs. She walked.
お姉ちゃん
God! If someone hadn't called out to her, she wouldn't even have realized that she'd already reached her destination. She was now at a shabby dark station, much like the previous one. The sign there said Katasu. This place
お
was
姉ちゃん
called once again. She looked to her left. There was a concrete platform within her reach, and on it there was a child. A silhouette of a child with a cheap-looking kimono and bobbed hair. The child's voice was androgynous and not very articulate. The moon was hidden now, and only the source of light were the sky and the sign. Sato couldn't see the child's face.
なんでこんなところにいるのここは行っちゃいけないところだよ
The voice was innocent, but a bit strict and harsh too.
出してあげるからついてきて上がれる
The child gave Hisato a hand. She, however, merely stared at it. It was so close that she couldn't see past the hand's shadow. A dark child. Could it be that?
懸命でやらせられるの記者のお方
The sudden girlish voice made both Hisato and the child turn to face its source. Okay, not baited. I thought that was God for a second too, but there she is. No need to look like a weird Bob child. Bob cut, not Bob. There was a strange-looking figure near the ticket gate. She was clad in bandages and looked about 16 or 17.
お姉ちゃん悪いものが来たよ急いで
No.
逃げなきゃくくれや
Oh, it's the OG song that we heard last Setzer story before it got corrupted. With that, Hisato instantly knew who she had to trust. That was the song that Chiemi Serizawa had taught her back in Fujiyoshi. Ignoring the child, she ran to the platform, climbed up, and hid behind the girl.
よう頑張られましたな
あなた、安永くんの。
黙りなされ逆らうの
That was no longer a child's voice. It wasn't even human. The child had been replaced by a vortex of darkness that looked somewhat humanoid. However, that wasn't true darkness. It was a chaos that consumed all, even light. Oh god. For a moment, Hisato thought that she'd seen 3 shining spots on his face, but she instantly looked away. If this thing wanted it, it could have prevented her from doing that. It could even crush her sanity completely. That was just how big of a deal this thing was.
このものは我がしもべじゃあなた様は手を出さぬ約定のはず嘘だ
True?
これからそうなるそうやってこれからいつ
Every time.
邪魔をするのか
They met multiple times. That's interesting. Haru did say that, or God did say that. She did know who was like trying to capture Mamiya.
もう次はせぬそうだねお前はあの場所で我にかくまわれていた弱々しき神のはずだ
Maybe back. I don't know if she's referring to like when she was weak, or back like even in the ancient days when she was like a ruthless god.
狼や蛇に睨まれて言いなりになっていた
Oh no, no, that's
弱い弱い
that is when
弱い
she was
神
weak
だ
in Yasumisu.
立てつくことなどできるはずがない それでも我は落ち戻った。
And we didn't thud. That's crazy.
そうだね。だからこっちにも戻ってこないで。山のな。
五章じゃ。
ふーん。許そ
ありがたい。
う。橋本雄大を代わりにしようか。
What that? Yo, leave Hashimoto alone, man. Sato almost stopped breathing. Why would that name come up here? There's no reason to ask. She knew it all.
やめてください。
You're telling me give him. I don't know. Give him like one of the Hidruchis in jail.
じゃあ来てよ。
Don't do it.
わがままだな。命の値段を何だと思ってるの。
That was Hisato's line. However, she didn't have the guts to talk back against this dark, crawling chaos.
どうしてこの
夢の霧の中であまた苛まれ切り刻まれし呪わしき
Special.
魂
Okay.
闇の食事にふさわしい。
I'm starting to think that maybe this isn't budget Tsuchirumo. This might be bigger than Tsuchirumo.
あのまま闇に
Then
届け
definitely.
るつもりが
This is just
さら
darkness
げに逃してしまう
incarnated or something.
代わりにあやつを差し出そう。
The unnerving girl turned around to the ticket gates. It was hard to see, but there was a silhouette there. It was a very old man. But why did it seem like there was a dagger in his throat? Oh, dude. Not even letting the old man rest. Honestly, that is the best target we can sacrifice.
類まれなる横島な見たまじ
He is like, if you want an evil spirit, that guy is just pure
欲に
evil.
も立てられる。
So Haru is just holding his soul.
まあね。しかし釣り合わぬ。
Why?
何？
こうしよう。お姉ちゃん。闇が好きなんでしょう？これからたくさん見せてあげるよ。
約束が違う。
糧にならぬというならば、せめて我が慰みとな
I'm
れ
just
ば
gonna torture you with visions for like a while.
斧が命運の細く短き様を嘆きつつ、それを伸ばさんとして醜くあがき続けるがよし。神は試練を与えるもの。そうだよね、お姉ちゃん。
She couldn't say anything back.
それで身の程を知れ。
承知した。行くぞ、女。
The girl dragged her, past the old man who struggled for breath, and out of the station, into a dark road. Well, it's not the perfect exchange. I guess we're just cursed to see curse shit for a while, but it's better than whatever would happen if she actually took you. As Yasunada stood alone in the campus without purpose, the cell phone he borrowed rang. It made him jump. It was a call from a public phone. Could it be that?
もしもし、
私、間宮久子。
無事でしたか？今どこです？
無事っちゃ無事かな。一応5体満足だけど、死ぬほど疲れた。
今どこです？自宅ですか？
奥多摩。
え？
なんかすごい山の中に放り出された。
Dropped on a mountain is crazy.
織部くんとこの神様、シビアすぎない？
Again, better than being in
でも
whatever the
いい神
darkness
様です
is.
よ。
そうみたいね。ちょっと遭難しかけただけで人里を出られたし。タクシー乗り継いで帰る。
タクシーですか？とんでもない値段になるんじゃ。
もう電車には当分乗りたくないの。
I think that's fair.
もっともですね。とにかく
That's fair.
迎えに行きます。安全な場所で休んでいてください。
3 hours later. 3-hour taxi is crazy.
間宮さん、
That is so much money. The young man who got off instantly ran over to her.
本当に来てくれるとは。
She probably like switched around and stuff. I don't even think the taxi driver would do a 3-hour trip. Her whisper made her realize just how tired she was. However, there are no signs of all the falling and vomiting she did in Kisaragi Station. Her high heels were okay too, and the ball pen wasn't broken. Her cell phones were still charged as well.
無事でよかったです。
実のところ、ちょっと今でも信じられないけどね。
By this, she meant the experience itself, and the fact that she escaped from that being.
でも、君がいなかったら絶対に戻ってこられなかったと思う。感謝してるよ。
He did come in
オリベ
touch
安永君。
along with God.
いえ。それより間宮さん、お金を持ってますか？駅からタクシー乗ったんですが、もう門なしになっちゃいました。
She sighed, remembering the boy was the definition of penniless. It was a valid problem to have, but it didn't make her feel good. She stated a bit as she got up, but it was only due to her walk down the mountain and mental fatigue. Perhaps she even lost several of her sanity points. The thing said it would show her even more darkness. She wanted to brush it off as a joke, yet it was totally just joking with you. Likely it only said that to menace and ridicule her. That was the kind of being it was. Well, now maybe if you want to go back to occult writing, that might make for some good material.
とりあえず、帰ろっか。
ええ。どうします？駅にしろ直行にしろ大丈夫だって運転手さんは言ってますけど。
電車はな。
僕が見張っておいてあげますよ。
The words caught Hisato off guard.
それならいいかしら。
Well, she's not gonna get jumped from the train again. They already made a deal.
どうしたんです？
She was just having a moment of weakness. This boy was really dependable, but he really wasn't her type. Hell, he was underage too. Yeah, that's probably the bitter part. And a lot younger than her. It'd be a crime, literally.
あ、そうだ。すみませんが、近いうちに休みずに来てもらえますか？
どうして？
なんかうちの神様が間宮さんを助けるためにいろいろあったらしくて、
Gotta
なきゃって言ってました。
become her servant now.
僕に渡したお守りだけじゃちょっと心もとないから、ちゃんといろいろするとかなんとか。
Maybe protect her properly so she won't get assaulted by darkness visions. That reminded Hisato that she'd become her follower.
なんか変な儀式とかあるのかしら。
いや、今はもうないですよ。
やっぱり興味あるな、君の村。もうちょい調べさせてもらえない？一応学芸員の資格はあるんだけど。
あ、それで思い出した。大学。
ああ、そうかそうか。って四国まで車で行くのって大丈夫？明日の日程が終わったら夜のうちに出てとか。
僕は大丈夫ですけど。
じゃあそれでアポ取っておこうかしら。その足で四国行って帰る足で富士吉村？それなら君も楽だろうし。というか明日も送迎してあげるわよ。一応軽だけど車はあるから。
え、そんなにしていただいたら悪いですよ。
いいのいいの。今日する予定だった買い出しもする予定だし。
And she didn't want to be alone.
それじゃ
Fair.
ぜひお願いします。僕も自分の故郷の歴史を自分の手で紐解けたらなって思ってるんです。その時は間宮さんと一緒にするっていうのもいいかもしれないなって。
Could be a cute couple. Mamiya just has to wait a year before doing anything. Then it's fine. Patience, Mami. Patience, Mamiya, then it's legal. If 18's legal in Japan. I forgot. Like, adult, when you're considered an adult. It's 19 in Canada. It's like 21 in the States. I don't know when it is in Japan. Not trying to Google that. It's kind of sus. Yasunara began having trouble putting his thoughts into words, which made Hisato tilt her head. But anyways, wait a bit. Then you have your man. Oh. Marion too. I can't believe he's bringing that up though. Seeing the boy turn beet red, she felt that he really was still a child. She found it charming and it was perfectly healthy impression to have.
とにかく行こうか。運転手さん待ってるし。
そうですね。
奥多摩か。駅の近くにすごく美味しい
I
ラ
love me
ー
some
メン屋
good
があるって
ramen,
聞いた
man.
からそこで今日は食べよっか。
さすがプロの情報ですね。でもお金が。
命の恩人にはおごるわよ。当然。
そんなって今更か。じゃあすみません。ごちそうになります。
Nice. They got in the taxi, and as Hisato listened to Yasunada give directions to the driver, she finally relaxed. She resolved to feed him her own food tomorrow. That sentiment was even stronger than it was this afternoon, but that was because he saved her life, surely. They'd then go to Shikoku. It wouldn't be just a drive, but a real trip. And then they'd visit his home. What a packed schedule. She was excited, tense, and strangely uneasy about it.
何もなければいいな。
She always yearned to experience something blatantly occult and paranormal, but now she knew it was something to enjoy from a distance. True, I feel like that should, that's a good message to anyone who's interested in occult and paranormal. It's very interesting to observe and research. Definitely don't want, like, weird shit happening to you, man. You might just get sucked into a different dimension. Get, like, tortured by a god or something. Sato suddenly wanted to see that informant Haraki Fusaishi then. That insolent man had gone through a mystery she hadn't, and she felt she could bond with him over their strange experiences. It was high time she made an appointment with him, so she resolved to make one at all costs.
そういえば、間宮さん。
As the driver began taking them to the station, Yasunada took something out and gave it to Hisako.
写真？
ええ。安水の遺跡から出たものらしいです。人柱になった昔の方の遺物だとか。こんな文化どこにも見たことないから、すごくいい研究テーマになるんじゃないか。
I know they want to research it, but like, should or shouldn't like Nosato? I mean, Nosato should give over the research notes just so they can have like a really good baseline for it.
間宮さん。
But they answer like a lot of the questions.
あなたの神様だったりしないわよね。
No, that's a different one. Wolf
こ
God.
れはもういない神様です。
なら、まあ。
She felt like she'd just seen a whole new face to the world. The beast masked with 3 red eyes carved into it made Hisato think of darkness looming ahead of her. What? It wasn't the wolf, because the wolf said that, oh, even the wolf, or the wolves and the snakes were laughing at you, or something. End. What an episode. I mean, I guess we had to split that in 2, but that was really good. And the horror segment was actually fairly good. Was not expecting some like Lovecrafty and shit to happen, to be honest. And so I'm guessing we probably won't see God, Yasunada and Mamiya anymore. So it's good to get 3 characters in one section. I was thinking maybe a character might show up just because having one character for a whole extra story seemed like a lot, but yeah. Anyways, a god and a priest. Oh, this is actually, we are gonna see Haru. Well, I guess we saw more God than Haru, so I think this is gonna be Haru and Mochi. That's gonna be fun for next time. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time on some more Raging Loop. What a sesh. Nice 2-hour sesh. Later.